Hi guys, I'm Maylin Dovan, certified athletic therapist and founder of Rehab-U Movement and Performance Therapy. Welcome to our YouTube channel. This week we're going to talk about load distribution for rotational efficiency. So what does that actually mean? It sounds so complex and intellectual. What can I say? I'm a geek. Really what I'm saying is that in sports movements like throwing, swinging, striking, there needs to be a distribution of forces, like along the kinetic chain. Now, obviously, there are biomechanical components to this, meaning that we want each of the segments of the body to work together, where one movement of one segment is going to affect the movement of the next segment, right? The whole concept of the kinetic chain. So we definitely want all of those segments to be working properly, all of those joints to be working properly. So when we do things like restore range of motion, we're working on making sure that all of those segments can contribute optimally to that kinetic chain. But we also need to do more than that. Hey guys, thanks for watching our videos, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Now, when we approach that kinetic chain idea from a functional perspective, from a sports-related perspective, now we're concerned with how forces are accelerated and decelerated. So what are those definitive sequences of acceleration and deceleration, and how load and energy gets transferred across the kinetic chain? And it's why rotation exercises are so popular in sports-related training, right? And there's obviously no lack of rotational drills and exercises out there. And to be honest, you could probably use any of them and they would probably have some amount of transfer regardless of the sport that you're working on. But I do think that we can make more judicious choices on the exercises that we choose based on how rotation is produced in whatever sport we're working with. And I'm not talking about tying a tennis racket to elastic tubing, okay? I'm talking about fundamentally just understanding where the focus of rotation is coming for each of those specific sports that you might be working with. So one common pattern of rotation that we see in sports that involve throwing, striking, swinging is X factor, which really was popularized by golf, but is also used a lot in throwing. And we're talking about, it refers to the angle between the hips and the shoulders at the end of the, at the beginning of the downswing or end of the backswing, or at the cocking phase. I'm not a golfer, so I'm more going to show you like a throwing motion. So that separation between the hips and the shoulder. So we're talking about creating separation between the hips and the shoulder, rapidly stretching the muscles of the trunk, and then releasing that potential energy into the throw, into the swing, right? So throwing, striking with a racket, etc. So how can we load that movement, again, without doing silly things like tying a racket to a piece of tubing, right? So how can we load that separation of the hips and the shoulders? So in our movement optimization strategy, we do that in 3 different kinds of ways. So first, we want to load the movement in a more slow and controlled manner. So probably one of the best exercises to do this is a high to low chop. So I'm going to get him into this athletic stance, and really the arms are staying straight as he's doing this, okay? The arms are staying straight because we're bringing the focus to torso rotation. So as he comes up, I'm going to let him reach with the torso, and then he's going to come straight down, arms staying straight. So we're not in the motion of a swing or a golf swing or anything like that. We're arms really straight so that we can bring that motion into the torso. So stretching the muscles of the torso and then loading them to come back. Okay, so now we're loading in a slow and controlled manner. Thank you. The next thing we want to do is we want to take that pattern and make it more dynamic. And again, it's always great to start with something that's a little bit more focused on deceleration. So we're preparing those muscles for the deceleration. So we have a dynamic loaded exercise where he needs to decelerate. And again, it's focused on that separation between the hips and the shoulders. So we're going to do an atlas swing. So again, feet parallel, and then he's going to go and swing it up, and he needs to decelerate on the down and on the up as well. As he swings that up and down, it's more of a ballistic movement, and so the focus is a little bit more on deceleration, excuse me, up at the top. Okay, and we could have him pivot a lot or not pivot so much, depending on where we wanted to bring the focus. Thank you. And then third, we can progress that dynamic loaded integration exercise to an acceleration exercise, right? So now we're actually throwing an object. So now he's going to use a rotational medball slam to really stretch those muscles of the hips and the trunk, and then accelerate that down. So we're going to go rotational medball slam, so up and over and straight down, up and over. Good. Yes. So there you see, it's a rapid stretch as he takes the ball over, and then a quick acceleration down. So guys, you could modify this any way you needed to based on the sports that you're working with. For example, we had our athlete feet parallel, which for golf would work great, but if you're working with a different kind of athlete, you might decide to have the feet staggered. So you can manipulate these exercises any which way you can. And these exercises might be different if you're bringing the focus more to changing direction, for example. So your focus wouldn't be so much on hip-shoulder separation, but more on the hips and what goes on in change of direction. So the idea, what I mean to say is that whether you're rehabbing an athlete from an injury, or whether you've just worked on improving and restoring range of motion in the shoulder, in the hips, or anything like that, you really want to work on that sequence of acceleration and deceleration and how that occurs using a rotation exercise that's going to be as specific as possible to what's going to happen in the sport, so that you're exposing now that injury, that tissue, that structure, or that new range of motion to the stresses that are similar to what it's going to face in the specific sports environment. So there you have it, guys. Make sure you stay tuned for next week's video. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet and you did enjoy this video, then please subscribe. See you next week.